Hi, and welcome to Animalia the Podcast. I'm Natasha, and thank you so much for tuning in. This is episode 3, and I'm starting to get the hang of this podcasting thing now. So we have some great news to share about the brother cats, Crispin and Angelo from episode 1. We've had interest from at least one person in Trinidad, so fingers crossed and toes crossed, it works out and the tabbies will go to a loving home. Now, if you recall from episode 2, Kimlin spoke a bit about how stressful adoption can be, and we'll definitely explore that topic a bit more in future episodes, particularly how hard it can be to make sure the adopter is suitable for the animal that you've poured all of your time, energy, and love into. But as for episode 3, we're speaking with a woman who is fiercely, and I mean fiercely, passionate about animals. She's a former colleague of mine, and it's so funny how people meet and relate over animals. Our common beliefs led us to rescue at least 2 animals since we began working together, the more memorable of which was Jamie, the orange tripod tabby who I mentioned in the last episode, and I will share a pic of him or 2 in the bonus pics on the socials. Now, I feel like if I need to issue a disclaimer here, because you may not agree with everything she says, but I'm certain that it comes from a tremendous love and respect for animals, and from a desire to see animals treated the way they ought to. She is a newlywed, she's vegan, she's the mother of 3 big dogs, and she's a member of the Animal Rescue Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Please welcome to Animalia, the Doggo Bonito lady herself, Tamara Ramlagan. Thank you very much, Tamara, for agreeing to appear on Animalia.
Natasha, thank you for the opportunity.
Now, we are, for those who don't know, or who won't know, we are colleagues, or used to be colleagues, I should say.
Used to be colleagues, yeah.
And we sort of bonded over our love of animals and a couple of rescues a cat in particular that we rescued. So let's start off by talking a little bit about that experience. You are a dog owner, but you obviously have a love for all animals. What prompted you to assist in that rescue of Jamie?
Jamie is a sweetheart. Jamie has been around the velodrome where we worked for a long while, and after feeding him and realizing that this cat has a really good potential for being a house cat, he immediately became worth the investment. The money, the time, the effort, and of course I had your help. So while I'm mostly a dog person, I love cats as well, but I don't know much about them. So having your support and picking him up and that kind of stuff was definitely a motivating factor for me. Because if it wasn't for you, Natasha, I would have probably just had to call somebody else to assist with picking him up. Because as you remember, when we took Jamie to the vet that time, you told me to scruff him, and I didn't even know what that meant, and he just went ahead and scratched me. So
right. Right. So you learn a little bit more about cats through that experience.
I learned more, yes, definitely. And, seeing an animal in need is very hard to resist for me. And as an animal rescue as well, it's very expensive and it consumes your resources, time and money very quickly, very easily. So unfortunately, as animal rescuers, we do have to pick and choose. But because Jamie was just there all the time, you develop a love for this cat and you think you have to help him. And that's just motivating enough to just do all that you can to ensure that this cat gets a proper home, love, food, water, medical care, and for weeks.
Yes, and thankfully that Jamie's story, ended so perfectly.
Perfectly.
Even though he had to, amputate one of his legs, but he was still the same loving, playful cat.
Loving cat. Yes. Funny enough, based on the amputation, before you called him Jamie after that guy from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And then he became Jamie.
Exactly. That was a little too prophetic. I don't know.
So, yes.
Yeah, that was That was prophetic. But these things happen with animals sometimes. So, as we're on the topic of rescuing, could you tell me a little bit about the work that you do with the Animal Rescue Association?
Okay, sure. So I'll just give you a briefing about the association first. I was not around when they initially started in 2017. The chairman is actually my uncle, Chris Balaram. So he and his family really, really love dogs and cats as well. And they started rescuing. And then, they built a network after that with other people in the business of rescuing. When I say business, nobody's making money, but you know what I'm getting at. Yeah, and then eventually they registered the association, which is the Animal Rescue Association of Trinidad and Tobago, in 2017. And they operate out of one of their offices in the corner of Perseverance and Lala Street. And we are in the process of building an animal shelter in Connector Road, Felicity, that's in Chaguanas area. So we have been conducting several fundraisers to get to the stage where we want to be at. The shelter construction happens in phases as resources come, because as you know, resources don't come all at once. So over the past 2 years, since I have been involved as well, we have been doing constant fundraisers, barbecues, cruises, pop-up shops to raise adequate funds to build a shelter. So my involvement in the association is not physical involvement in terms of going out on the roads and picking up these dogs. Our other lovely members do that because they have the vehicles to do it. And I cannot bring a dog at home because, as you know, Natasha, I have 4. Well, I'm down to 3 now, and my dogs are not very dog friendly. So what I do instead to contribute is that I handle the marketing, the PR. When we have events, I help with the sale of tickets, doing the graphics for the tickets, doing graphics for the flyers, the ads. And even when we have a tough case for adoption, sometimes you really just need to make the ads look pretty for people to bite. And that's where I come in. And I help with the coordination of events as well, which we didn't have much of, but when we do, I would help with, for example, the cruise, ensure that everything runs smoothly on the day, help with ticket collection, ticket sales, and anything else that is required for that event.
Right. How many animals do you think your association would have helped over the years?
Oh, countless. Definitely countless. So while we are limited in our capacity to house animals, which we still do, the members keep animals in their respective homes. But since we do not have our own shelters yet, we are limited in our capacity. So in total, how much animals we will help would be hundreds, because we also work with the Animal Defense Society. You probably know Delvin, and we assist with his animals as well. And if we cannot house an animal, we help with financing their vet bills. We help raise funds for them if we ourselves cannot take out money from the association. So the number is countless.
Right. What are the most frequent situations that you have to rescue animals from?
Oh boy. Well, what has been popping up a lot over the past 2 years, from my experience in the association, is dumping of cats and dogs in garbage bags in the rivers, in the drains, next to garbage bins. We have monsters in Trinidad. I mean, it happens all over the place, but I would say the dumping is definitely the biggest problem we're having right now, because when they dump by the litter. It's not one dog you have to rehabilitate and then rehome. It's a litter of puppies, and the puppies are in deplorable conditions. And then we have to house those puppies until they're of age to get vaccines and get spayed and neutered. So that is the biggest problem. As of now, people are not spaying and neutering their dogs, and when their dogs multiply like crazy, they just put them in a garbage bag and fling them somewhere.
Right. Well, let's go to the topic now of pedigree dogs. I mean, I was speaking with Elspeth about this very thing, and she was talking about the status symbol that a pedigree animal carries with it. And there are so many animals, strays, pothounds, etc., that need homes, but few people are willing to take them in. Why do you think that is?
So I have seen different types of people buy dogs. So I mean people who I perceive as good people and people who I perceive as bad people. And I really do believe, yes, it can be a status thing, but I think it's a lack of education. And it's a matter of turning a blind eye and not wanting to know what is really going on out there. So you just ignore that whole thing where dogs are being dumped, dogs are getting knocked down in the road, people are just abusing animals. You just decide to turn a blind eye on that and say, okay, I wanted a puppy, and oh yeah, this guy, this guy is selling huskies or pugs, and I always wanted a pug, so let me go spend $5,000 and buy it. Now that's a very touchy topic for me because I tend to get in a lot of fights because people want to justify why they purchase. I've heard one person say, I wanted to make sure the dog remains small, and it had to be a pug, because for sure the pug will stay small. But I mean, there's so many good dogs in the shelter who they can guarantee this dog is not going to get too large, and he makes a really good house dog. He's potty trained, no medical conditions. But the truth is, you wanted that pug. So people cannot change. I think regulation, however, can insist that they make that change. So I feel an easy way to deal with the problem, as hard as it may be for the government to do, is stop the importation of animals and crack down on the animal breeders here who has these animals in deplorable conditions, by the way. The animal breeders in Trinidad are not always any different from the ones that you see in the puppy mills in Venezuela or those other countries.
Do you have experience or knowledge of that situation in Trinidad?
My uncle actually recently he got a German Shepherd from an animal breeder. They usually sell them, but he actually got one, right? Even though I told him, don't take the German Shepherd from the animal breeder, go adopt one. He said, no, he wanted a dog that's big and bad for security purposes. So anyway, he went ahead and he got one. When they picked up that dog, Natasha, the dog was close to rotting.
Wow.
In a small, tiny crate. Yeah, the dog was in a crate, like a kennel. I wouldn't say a crate. A kennel with her siblings in a really bad situation.
Oh, God.
And they had to clean up the dog and, give her dewormers, tick and flea meds. She was covered in ticks.
Oh, my God.
And that's just one. I won't go into too many details, but yes, I do have experience. And then recently, somebody else I know bought a pug from an animal breeder in Claxton Bay. The pug has practically no teeth. A puppy, rotten to its core, and a ton of other health conditions. So these people don't care about these cats and dogs. They don't care. They just care about the money. And if we continue to purchase these animals, we are supporting their industry. And we are fueling it and giving them motivation to continue to breed these dogs and cats in deplorable conditions. And it's a never-ending cycle. So the only way to stop that is to stop the purchase of these animals. Whether you think it's a good dog breeder or the dog is house bred or whatever. Some people, they just have 2 huskies at home and they just make pups. They treat the dogs really nice and then they send them off to homes, right? But my thing is, stop supporting all of that and you begin the stray population will close in. Because if you want a dog, you want a dog, right? If you really care about dogs and you love animals, you will go and take the put-down from the shelter or pick up the put-down from the street. And anybody who doesn't want that, they shouldn't have a dog, sorry.
It's very frustrating when you are in contact with animals who have been discarded or are straying, and you know that they can be very good pets and people are reluctant to adopt them because they're not of a certain breed.
Listen, when we post things on the association's page, we just found a bag of puppies. They just been given their vaccines, whatever, up for adoption. And some idiot will say, what breed? Is pit bull? And I'm just like, what? My mind is blown. Yes, I will soon share my story about my dogs, who they're practically large puttons.
Oh, you could go into it now.
Right. So the dad Bolt, we got him from somebody who in the area who had pups, and we just took him and we just gave the man a 200 to compensate for chow and whatnot. So we practically adopted Bolt. A very good looking dog, by the way. He was mixed with Puttown, Dalmatian, and Pit. We never got him neutered because I wasn't so educated